Greetings, all you Tosks and Hunters, Rikaris, Waddies, Innis and Nolinus, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Hello.
Today we're going to recap, discuss, and rate Season 1, Episode 18, Dramatis Personae, or Dramatis Personae, or whatever.
Alternate title?
Alternate title, Dolomite is my name, and causing space mutinies is my game.
See, in my mind, the whole thing was very Shakespearean, so I was like, I need, Shakespeare, the play's the thing. That's my alternate title.
There wasn't really a play in the episode.
They were kind of acting out,
Sure, okay, sure. A quick note on spoilers in case our rewatch is your first watch. Expect full spoilers through this episode, and an appropriate minimum of minor spoilers for later in the series, but nothing too big, like the Saved by the Bell crossover episode.
That would have been a thing.
This episode originally aired May 30th, 1993. It was written by Joe Menosky and directed by Cliff Bowl.
You know, I got a random thing to throw in. When you mentioned, Ennis and Noel Ennis. I was reading today about Cardassians, just as you do, for some reading. And apparently
gotta keep up with the Cardassians.
Yeah, exactly. One of the first ideas for that was it was going to be some Cardassians and some humans in a fight forever or whatever. And then they were, I suspect that maybe they were maybe we should put this in the Gamma Quadrant. And then it was oh, well, then they can't be Cardassians.
Yeah. I don't know Joe Menosky or Cliff Bowl. I did not look up what other stuff they've done, but...
Okay, well, let's look up what other stuff they've done. Joe Menosky, what have you done? Executive story editor during Season 4 of The Next Generation.
Oh.
Besides writing scripts for The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and Star Trek Voyager.
Okay, so he's just all around.
Yep. Oh, he was on The Orville.
Oh, wow, he is all around.
He wrote the episode Sanctuary, which was directed by Jonathan Frakes and featured Marina Sirtis, F. Murray Abraham, Tony Todd, and other Star Trek alums.
Tony Todd was on Star Trek?
I'm pretty sure he pops up once or twice. Let's see. Oh, yeah, he's, spoiler for later. Oh, he's Worf's brother in The Next Generation.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's also Alpha Hirogen on Voyager. And he's a character later on Deep Space Nine that I won't spoil. But
Okay. Interesting. Anyway, let's recap this episode. Sisko's doing some commandery stuff in his office. He's looking at a pad and a obviously CRT TV scrolling some text, but whatever. When Kira rushes in to inform him that a Valerian ship is requesting to dock at the station.
Valerian
no relation to
what's that movie? Valerian and the Thousand
Planet of 1,000 Universes or something. That's what I thought too.
City of 1,000 Planets. That's what it's called.
There we go. Okay.
Terrible movie.
I don't know. I thought it was fun. At parts.
Okay, that's fair.
She suspects that they are smuggling dolomite and wants to search their vessel. Sisko urges caution, as it may turn out to be a different, less dangerous Rudy Ray Moore character, such as the Avenging Disco Godfather, or perhaps Petey Wheatstraw, the Devil's Son-in-Law. In Ops, O'Brien is explaining why Jake and Nog aren't here in this episode, when suddenly the wormhole opens and a Klingon ship comes through. Oh yeah. You don't usually expect Keiko to be in the episode, though, but it's good to cover that.
It's true. Keiko's very rarely in the show.
Sisko says to open hailing frequencies, but the hailing frequencies seem to cause the ship to explode. Luckily, one Klingon is able to beam off. His beam is weak, so Dax offers some advice on how to strengthen the signal. O'Brien is like, yeah, thanks, I know how to do transporters.
Yeah, that was my immediate thing. It was do you not know who you're talking to, Dax?
Yeah.
This was the transporter chief on, the flagship. There's nothing that he does not know about how to transport her.
I mean, just watch the next... He's been through every transporter situation imaginable. Yeah. He's been through, aliens being in the beam and bothering people, and the transporter turning one person into two people. He's seen it all.
Yep.
A Klingon man materializes on the transporter pad. Victory, he declares, before dying of mysterious combat wounds. They quickly identify the man as the first officer of the Tokat, a ship on a biosurvey mission in the Gamma Quadrant, the Klingons being well known for their high-quality biosurveys.
Yep.
The first officer's declaration of victory was likely a celebration of the completion of another glorious biosurvey for the Empire. The crew breaks to go investigate what happened, and Dax has a weird giggle fit. Meanwhile, Kira tries to stall the Valyrian ship, but Sisko overrules her. Odo interviews Quark about the Klingons. Quark says the Klingons had bragged that they were about to bring back something through the wormhole that would make the enemies of the Empire tremble. Presumably high-quality biosurvey data.
I just love how much damage the Klingons apparently do to Quark's bar every time they visit. And he's just like, they spend lots of money, but I still come up behind because I have to fix all the damage.
Yep. Anyway, suddenly Odo has some kind of Odo stroke and falls down unconscious. When he comes to, he's in the infirmary being examined by Dr. Bashir, who doesn't know what's wrong because he doesn't know how Odo works.
The most useless doctor visit ever.
Yep.
Odo's like, hey, how am I? And he's like, I don't know. How do you feel?
Yeah, do you feel good? I don't know.
You probably are good then. Okay, bye now.
We didn't have any of you in, medical school, so... Bashir then casually says, hey, how about that brewing mutiny? Odo is like, what? Sisko is doing something secretive in his office when Kira comes in, and they have a weirdly intense conversation about the Valyrian ship situation. O'Brien and Dax are in a runabout searching for the Klingon ship's black box. O'Brien's like, hey, how about that brewing mutiny? You better be on Sisko's side or I'll knife you. Dax is like, yeah, that's fair. Then they find the black box.
I really wonder, what if this Valyrian ship issue hadn't come up before all this started, what would the mutiny have been about? It's like, hey, I think we should transfer Ensign so-and-so to, the third shift instead of the second shift. And Kira's like, no, mutiny!
That would have been, it was like, I think we need to, do a minor crew rotation. It's like, what?
How dare you?
Kira pays a visit to Odo and tries to sweet-talk him into infiltrating the Valyrians. Odo sees through her clever ploy.
He kind of doesn't see through her ploy. Because he's like, did Sisko approve this? And she says yes. And he's like, okay then. And then she's like, you got me. He didn't. And I was like, well, but he was going to do it.
Well, he's like, I'll be sure to keep Sisko in the loop. And she's okay.
That's true.
So I think he kind of suspected. Back in Ops, they try examining the Klingon black box, which is mostly garbled. Through the static, they hear something about energy spheres. Sisko is like, meh. O'Brien offers to de-garble the message, and Sisko is like, sure, whatever, and runs back into his office. Everyone kind of shrugs and moves along, except for Odo, who's like, what the f*** is going on here? Dax goes to have a drink at Quark's when Kira comes in and tells Dax, hey, you want to be on my side in the mutiny? Quark overhears it and is like, holy crap, what? So Kira grabs him and throws him around to intimidate him.
And also horribly injure him.
Yep. Quark puts on a neck brace and goes to Odo's office to complain, presumably a precursor to some kind of lawsuit. Odo's like, wait, Kira did what and said what? Doesn't that seem a little weird to you? Quark's like, yeah, but my neck though. Odo starts pacing and launches into a Sherlock Holmes-style monologue about how something fishy is going on. Quark's heart sinks as he realizes he's not going to get his lawsuit.
He wants satisfaction.
Right. Maybe he should challenge Kira to a duel.
Well, we saw how that would have gone, so...
Right. Well, if he has a Ferengi rapier or something.
Somehow I don't think that'll help.
The Ferengi... It doesn't come up much in the show, but Ferengi are great fencers. Odo goes to Sisko's office and finds O'Brien in there instead, listening to the Klingon log, which describes a brewing mutiny. Also something about energy spheres. Odo's like, hey, can I have those logs when they're done processing? O'Brien is like, sure, just remember to take our side in the mutiny. Odo goes to Sisko's quarters and finds it guarded, although the guards do nothing to stop him from entering.
Yeah, O'Brien, okay, so as this progresses, it seriously seems like there's two people on Sisko's side. That's O'Brien and Sisko. The guards clearly don't give a shit and are kind of confused to why they're even here. And so it's Kira has several people that seem to join in, which makes you wonder, wait, were you there when everybody got infected, or are you just totally on board with a mutiny when Kira starts one? Maybe that's a question that should be asked, but they keep acting like there's two sides, and really one side is like two guys.
Right. Odo tries to tell Sisko all about the weirdness going on, but Sisko's just like, check out this awesome clock I'm building. Odo backs out slowly.
Which I should call out because of all the complaining I've done about it. The clock is one thing that does come back in later seasons and is like seen like in Sisko's office or in his quarters or somewhere, it's like in the background on shelves. So something came back.
Good for them, I guess. Odo goes back to his office, where we get a nice close-up of Kira's shoes. Some costume designer was undoubtedly pleased to see that.
It's just that Quentin Tarantino directed that scene.
No, she wouldn't be wearing shoes if it was a Quentin Tarantino
That's
scene.
A good point.
Kira's like, so you joining my side in the mutiny? Odo's like, sure, what's the plan? But Kira sees through this clever ploy. Odo tries calling Starfleet, but communication to the Federation is blocked by order of Kira. He tries calling Bajor, but communication to Bajor is blocked by order of Sisko. Odo's like, can I call the Romulans? But they are no help. Luckily, the Klingon mission log is finished processing. The first officer describes exploring a planet for potential colonization and finding some telepathic energy spheres that tell the story of an ancient power struggle. Odo's like, okay, I see what's going on here. He rushes to the infirmary, where Bashir is giving a Bajoran man a mysterious device. Bashir immediately violates the man's HIPAA by explaining his diagnosis to Odo. Then he's like, you ready for this upcoming mutiny? Odo's like, yeah. Anyway, if there were some telepathic energy spheres, could they make people start reenacting an ancient power struggle? Bashir's like, yeah, if there was some kind of telepathic matrix, I guess. Odo's like, okay, can you do a thing that cures that? It'll help us with the mutiny. Bashir's like, oh, if it'll help us win the mutiny, totally.
So, random fun fact from the wiki on this one is that apparently Nana Visitor, the actress who plays Kira, slips on a stairway and hurts her back during filming. And she was like, oh no, I'm fine. But Rick Berman makes her go to the hospital. So she goes to the hospital still in full makeup. And the doctor's like, forget your back. Your nose is horribly broken. We have to address this.
Nice.
Good times.
Yep. Back in Ops, the Bajoran man we saw earlier tries to assassinate Sisko, but fails.
Because he's super slow and stupid. Like, he walks up and takes an hour to, like, jab him.
Yep. Sisko and O'Brien escape to a corridor somewhere and call Odo for help. He tells them to go to Docking Port 4 and wait for him. Then he tells Kira, hey, I trapped Sisko and O'Brien in Cargo Bay 4. Everybody rushes to Docking Port/Cargo Bay 4, including Odo and Bashir. While Sisko delivers a long, crazy dictator speech, Odo tells the computer, hey, do that anti-telepathic matrix thing, and purple clouds start coming out of everybody's heads. Odo opens the airlock and blows the purple clouds into space. Sisko's comm badge, which he took off earlier, briefly reappears, then disappears. Notably, the guy who tried to assassinate Sisko is not in there, raising some questions. Back in Sisko's office, Kira comes in to apologize for the mutiny. Sisko's like, no biggie, we're still buddies, right? She's like, oh yeah. Sisko goes back to working on the clock, possibly implying he's still possessed by the telepathic spheres or something.
I mean, once you're that far along, you gotta finish it, right?
True, I mean, yeah, maybe just Sisko's just like, oh, I can't leave this clock unfinished. There's no mission of going back to the planet where the spheres were to investigate and stop that from happening again, nor of whether the guy who tried to assassinate Sisko was under the influence of the purple cloud or just a super loyal Bajoran willing to murder the commander on Kira's orders. Quark's lawsuit was dropped in court due to the possessed by aliens clause, and he had to eat the lawyer fees. The end.
I'm sure there is a possessed by aliens clause. It's true.
Oh, there absolutely must be.
It just happens so much.
So, man, yep, that was a great recap we just did of that episode. And we're just continuing our conversation with no technical difficulties in between. And I'm just going to totally naturally ask you if you found out any interesting information about director Cliff Bole.
Yeah, Cliff Bole. He's a big Star Trek director, apparently. It says he directed 25 episodes of The Next Generation and 7 of Deep Space Nine.
Wow.
And while some of these Next Generation episodes, like The Royale, are not necessarily top-tier Next Generation episodes, he directed both Best of Both Worlds episodes. So
wow.
That's some good stuff. And Unification Part 2.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Pretty solid resume. I wonder, were any alien races in Star Trek named after him?
So yeah, it's the Bolian race is named after Cliff Bole because he directed the first episode in which they were featured, the Next Generation episode Conspiracy. Ooh. Is that really the first time the Bolians are featured? I didn't realize that.
I thought Conspiracy was a pretty early episode.
Yes, that's a season 1 episode. But for some reason, I thought that like Bolians were like original series dudes.
Oh no, maybe you're thinking of the Andorians.
Yeah, Andorians definitely are, because they have changed dramatically. But
interesting.
This in-joke carried to an even more obvious conclusion in the naming of the Cliffs of Bole, a tourist destination on the Bolian homeworld in a Deep Space Nine episode.
Nice.
Yeah. And so, actor Will Wheaton was not a fan. He says that he was one of the many directors who treated him condescendingly on the set. Wheaton elaborated, most of them favored grabbing me by the elbow and moving me around on the set rather than, giving me directions like I was a person or a professional or anything like that.
Oh, man. What horrible abuse.
The worst offender was this guy, Cliff Bole.
What a bad man.
I like that they have one quote to, I guess, go against that or to rebut that in the next paragraph where it's like, alternately, actor Robert O'Reilly commented, Cliff Bole was just a wonderful director and a really nice guy. And then I had to be like, well, who the hell is Robert O'Reilly, though? And that's Gowron.
Oh. I thought you were going to say it's like, alternatively, Patrick Stewart was like, have you met Will Wheaton?
Robert O'Reilly also plays Scarface, Replacement Accountant, and Kago.
Replacement Accountant.
Yep, that's an episode of Deep Space Nine where he plays Replacement
Is that
Accountant.
A character?
I guess so.
Or did he have to fill in accounting one day?
Oh, no, yeah, that's totally... there's a picture on here, and I'm like, oh, that's right. Because, I won't go into it, because that's like a Season 7 episode of Deep Space Nine.
Sure.
But yeah, Replacement Accountant is absolutely the right name for this character.
Okay, so it's after the Saved by the Bell crossover?
Yeah. No, okay. It's part of the Saved by the Bell crossover.
That was a crazy episode, let me tell you. All right. Well, interesting facts about director Cliff Bole and his abuse of horribly annoying child actor Will Wheaton.
I'm looking at his other episodes, and they're all they're mostly of Next Generation at least, and they're mostly oh, that wasn't a great episode, or I don't remember that episode. But there's a few good ones. There's, Hollow Pursuits is on here. That's a good one.
Sure.
Silicon Avatar is not bad. But some of these I don't even remember what. And I'm pretty good with Next Generation episodes, but Liaisons, what episode was that?
If you told me, I would remember right away because I definitely remember that title.
I'm reading the summary, and I still am like, what was this? As an alien dignitaries visit the ship, Picard's shuttle crashes on a desolate planet where he meets a woman who has been stranded there for 7 years.
Oh, man. That's... Huh.
Yeah.
Was there another plot to that episode?
We're going to have to get deeper into this. Hold on. Let's see. So we start out with Worf looking at himself in a mirror in Starfleet dress uniform. Okay. You welcome aboard the ambassadors Loquel and Byleth. None of this is ringing a bell at all.
I feel like Loquel was a card.
Maybe. Byleth is rude to Worf and demands that he bring more food despite Dr. Crusher's explanation of protocol. Okay, that's sounding familiar.
I remember this now.
These guys are acting differently and trying to get reactions or something.
Yeah, that's right. They're deliberately being dicks to study human/Worf behavior or whatever. Or something like that.
Yeah, okay.
Or something.
Yeah. That's vaguely familiar. I still don't remember much about this episode, but that part sticks out.
Yep. Okay, so about this episode.
Right. The episode so I have to say about this episode. Conceptually, I like it. Once again, this is another high concept sci-fi thing that I'm like, this could be an episode of Next Generation, except that it couldn't.
This could be several episodes of Next Generation. It's like a grab bag of Next Generation tropes.
Yeah, but I feel like you couldn't get nearly this good an episode if you did this on Next Generation, because...
Well, sure. I mean, like...
There's a reliance on, like, this relationship that Kira and Sisko have that's kind of adversarial already. And so as things start out, it's like, oh, this is... I mean, you're not surprised. Like, if Riker just came in and was like, screw you, I think that we should do this. It'd be like, wait a second, what?
Yeah, it's true. It kind of like... Because of that whole, like, you know, Starfleet versus Bajor thing, it kind of sneaks up on you a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like they could have had it sneak up on you better than they do.
True.
But they do a little bit.
Yeah. But I would really love to see this on a Next Gen episode where, like, Riker just starts randomly trying to do a mutiny against Picard, and then Data is the only one unaffected.
See, but in that case, like, we've seen the whole ship go crazy except for Data before, and he's almost always completely capable of, like, disabling every other person on the ship and sorting stuff out.
True. So it would have to, maybe not Data, maybe, like...
Wesley Crusher is the only one unaffected.
Right. Although that's an episode also.
Oh, that is an episode. You're absolutely right. Yep.
This is such a Star Trek. This is such a Next Gen premise where the whole crew is affected by something except one person.
Yep.
Who has to figure out what to do. Also, an alien booby trap that, like, traps you in their ancient history or whatever.
Yep, that's an episode, all right.
I feel like that's many episodes of every series, to where it's like they should just have a name for it.
Right? Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I couldn't come up with it.
They all, like, it's kind of like Inner Light. But
yep, a little bit of Inner Light for sure.
I feel like they were kind of trying to mirror Inner Light with that clock scene.
Apparently, okay, so according to the writer, the clock thing, because he specifically calls that out, he's like, I had Sisko doing the whole clock thing because I wanted to convey to the audience that he'd become a, quote, obsessive, quirky Emperor Rudolph type.
Okay.
Emperor Rudolph II of the Holy Roman Empire, by the way. Is what that references to.
A very well-known historical figure to American audiences.
His ineffective rule and the mistakes he made led directly to the 30 Years' War, apparently.
Oh, nice.
But according to the writer of the episode, like, he liked to fiddle with little mechanical bits and pieces.
Interesting. I thought the 30 Years' War started when, like, the Winter Queen got killed or something. I don't know.
That sounds like the Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
Easy to get those two mixed up.
Yeah. When the Winter Queen got killed and it became able to be Christmas again.
Now I got to try to look up, like, what Wiki thinks he did that led to the 30 Years' War. Oh, this is very long. Okay.
Yeah,
Westphalia. Structural origins. Okay, so they're trying to... Okay, so basically within the Holy Roman Empire, Protestants and Catholics started conflicting, and I guess that...
oh, sure.
The Emperor did not do anything helpful.
He didn't tell them to stop that.
I guess not.
And then they started a war.
Interesting. Yep. Okay.
We're history buffs, as
yep.
you can tell. We just know all the stuff about history.
Speaking of the history of this episode, I should have brought this up when we were doing alternate titles, but the original working title of the episode was Ritual Sacrifice, which doesn't make any sense, and yet I still would have gone with it.
Yeah, when was there a ritual? Maybe in the original script it wasn't a mutiny, it was a ritual sacrifice.
That would have been that would have been interesting. It's like suddenly they turn into, like, a cult of devil worshippers who are going to make a blood sacrifice of Quark to their god or something.
That would have been fun.
I'd watch that one.
But yeah, my overview of this episode is basically, like, when I started watching it, I was like, you know, Star Trek stuff going on. Oh, there's a mystery. But as it got more and more into just, like, the Odo trying to figure out what's going on, and then, like, not having the skill set to solve this problem, and having to use his kind of like powers of persuasion to convince the people to de-brainwash themselves, I started enjoying it more and more.
I feel like Odo could have been more active in a lot of, like, at the end, he's finally like, okay, I'm going to jump into this and I'm going to pretend to be on both sides to get everybody where I want them. But I feel like he's way passive through most of the episode, where everyone's always coming up and like, hey, you want to join my side of mutiny? And he's just like, whatever.
Yeah, I think there's maybe one or two too many, like, what side of the mutiny are you going to be on scenes?
I think that those scenes would have been great if he had been active the entire time in, like, trying to play them off and, like, trying to maybe delay things by playing them against each other or something. But he's just like, I don't know what's going on. Why are you doing this? So
yeah, I think it's just a little, the pacing just gets a little slow in the middle, where maybe they were trying to like stretch out the premise a little bit or something.
We needed a couple more story beats. Yeah. Like I said, if he had set up a couple of like false flags to like distract them or something, you could have put in a couple more beats and it would have made the whole thing feel more active.
Or maybe instead of like just waiting for the computer to finish processing the Klingon black box or whatever, there should have been more Odo detective stuff.
Yeah.
Where he slowly figures out like where the ship has been and what happened and all that stuff.
Yeah, some sort of detective work instead of just like he coasts along, not sure what's going on, until he's like, hey, Bashir, could it be a thing like this? And Bashir's like, yeah, maybe. And then Bashir solves the problem with, technobabble.
Right.
And then it's over. So I was just like, it feels too passive to me.
Just like in the earlier Odo episode, A Man Alone.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point.
Where Bashir solves the whole thing.
I will say that I like what we're doing. I like the range that we're giving the actors. Sisko gets to like some ridiculously hammy stuff.
Oh, sure.
He's clearly having a lot of fun with.
Oh yeah, he was chewing this. There was like teeth marks all over that scenery.
And Kira does like not quite as on his level, but she gets a few like sassy, interesting little bits. I don't know that Bashir seems to change much at all.
Like Bashir wasn't affected. He was just like he was just like totally in for the mutiny. Yeah, I feel like Kira had a few like fun moments when it was like, oh, we've trapped Sisko and stuff like this. Or it's like, Odo, did you betray me? You're like, no. It's like, I knew it, and stuff like that.
And O'Brien gets some good bits. I feel like the one, and okay, so let me back up a little bit. So when I'm reading in the wiki about the episode and the concept, they're like, so this is like a season 3 episode for most shows, where you would need to know the characters better before you did something that like turns them into completely different characters.
Yeah, maybe.
But we did it in season 1 and it worked really well and stuff like that. And so I agree for the most part. Like I said, Sisko, we know well enough that his change is really interesting. Right. Kira, kind of the same. I don't think Bashir is either he's not established enough or they just don't do enough to make him seem interesting and different. But the one that really gets me is Dax, because we don't really know Dax at all. She had a whole Dax episode, but she barely talks in that episode. So we don't know her real well.
Maybe that's why they make her just seem drunk the whole episode.
Yeah. And so I'm like, well, I don't know that this isn't how Dax normally is, except for like the weird distracted giggliness.
It's like telling the same story over and over again. And
the only thing that we get about, like, she tries to tell several different stories, and then Kira is like, oh, you told me this one already this morning. And that's the only time that we get an idea that she's repeating stories. So even that, like, I felt like if we heard her actually telling the same story instead of 20 different stories, then that would have been a little something. But honestly, the thing I'm most disappointed about is that we didn't get to hear any of those stories. Every single one that she starts, I'm like, oh, I want to hear where this is going. And they always cut her off.
Wait, what happened when you did that? So, and I was thinking it's like maybe the purple cloud affects Trills differently or something like that. Because she didn't seem super into the whole mutiny play situation.
No, although she does like call Kira when things go down, so you know what side she's on. Because if she hadn't done that, I would have no idea which side she ended up on.
Yep.
And then she gets slapped.
Yep. And then Quark is presumably unaffected. I mean, he wasn't there, yeah. He wasn't there when the guy beamed on. So, and then he's got his 4-lobe brain also, and his Ferengi immune system. So he's like, he's extra covered from trying to participate in the mutiny.
I do like the explanation. It's like Odo just isn't built like any sort of other life form. He doesn't have a brain for the thing to have attacked in any way. Yeah, but it does make him freak out for some reason, briefly.
The purple cloud needs a humanoid brain, and it tried going into his head, which just kind of like smashed his head into goo for a second. And then he passed out in totally solid form again.
Yep.
Even though last episode, but whatever. We won't. Another thing I was thinking about this episode, because we keep talking about like episodes that like the storyteller one that are bafflingly over budget.
Yep.
I was like, this episode has to be some budget correction.
Yeah, it apparently it's mentioned here that this was a low budget episode intentionally.
Okay, because it's like we only get, I think there's only one guest star in the whole episode, which is that Klingon guy.
The Klingon guy. Yeah.
No, there is the Valerian guy. That's true.
But apparently the last episode, the locked in an elevator one, was also budget correction, because they're like, yeah, we were trying to do like a bottle episode where we're not going places, we're just like in a couple sets.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, yeah, those elevator scenes must have been super cheap and fast to film. And so
you're just like, we already have Majel Barrett Roddenberry hanging around. We'll just throw her in. It's fine. Yeah.
She's probably like, okay, I'll do this one for like $10, whatever. Or I'm already the computer voice anyway. No extra charge.
Yeah, but we decided that she's not the computer voice in most of the Deep Space Nine episodes.
That's true. Either way. So yeah, they're definitely in budget correcting mode, and I definitely noticed this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Even stuff like when Sisko's comm badge reappears on his uniform for one shot, and then disappears in the next shot.
I did not notice that until you said it.
It's like, do we need to do that shot again? It's like, no, keep going. It's good. Because was this show shot on film, or was it shot on video? I feel like it was shot on film, wasn't it?
Let's find out. Was DS9 shot on film? Although all of the first 4 Star Trek shows were shot on 35mm film, the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager were all edited on videotape.
Sure.
So there you go.
Yeah, which is why they had to like meticulously re-edit all those Next Gen episodes for the high def. But the good thing is, like, the special effects and stuff were all also shot on film. Although in Deep Space Nine, there's way more computer-generated stuff, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's true.
How that affects them.
Well, yeah, no, I don't know. Well, and there's also part that when they were doing the Next Generation, there was like a widescreen versus kind of full frame issue where it's like, they wanted to make it widescreen, and it was shot in widescreen, but if you try to do that, there's like crap on the edges of the stuff because they knew that it was going to be aired in full frame or whatever. So
yeah.
I'm scrolling through the wiki, and at the bottom, under uncredited co-stars, once again the appearance of Qatari Space Hooker, who I'm now going to be on the lookout for every single time.
Nice. And I'm pretty sure I saw Morn in Quarks.
Yeah, it does say that Morn shows up as Mark Allen Shepard as Morn and human DS9 resident.
Nice. Oh, human DS9.
Yeah. I want to know how the situation with the Valerians would have resolved if all this stuff hadn't happened.
I think Kira would have just done her investigation, and then, I mean, I don't know. She probably would have gotten to the bottom of it. Either way. She
finds evidence. Yeah, she's like, they were at that, like, refining place or whatever. But by that time, everything's so far gone to hell that nobody
I think they
cares.
forgot about the Valerians at some point. The Valerians were like,
well, no, because, like, O'Brien's like, I've talked to the Valerian captain. He'll get us out of here. Right. So we didn't exactly forget about them, but...
Yeah, at some point they must have just been like, oh wait, what about the Valerians? Just let them go. They already fixed their ship. So they have the Dolomite on board. So
yeah, which is maybe the only time we ever hear of weapons grade Dolomite.
Yeah, someone was watching like Dolomite and they're like, oh, we got to put this in Star Trek. I don't. Have we ever seen the Valerians again? I kind of doubt it.
That's a good question.
They look kind of like seahorse face people.
They do, kind of. No, this appears to be the only appearance of the Valerians.
Nice.
According to the episode script, the Valerians are simply described as humanoid with minimal prosthetic. There's your budget again.
I think how they put that directly in the script.
Yep.
So I just put like a do a wadi on them and just like paint their faces or something.
And apparently, yeah, this is the only time Dolomite is mentioned either. So
nice. You'd think the Bajorans would just like block the border for the Valerians if they were smuggling weapons earlier.
I feel like it's a weird mix of, because it's not it wasn't really smuggling before, because the Cardassians own this sector. Like, Valerians can come in and sell them whatever they want, presumably.
I guess that's true.
But now the Bajorans are like, okay, well, we don't like you because you sold to the Cardassians. But I imagine that lots of people sold stuff to the Cardassians because they're a major power.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know that you can just be like, no, we don't want anyone who ever sold crap to the Cardassians coming to our sector, because then you're not going to have anybody. So
true.
It's an odd stand that she takes here, where I understand her being like, we don't want more weapons going to the Cardassians through our sector. That makes sense. But she doesn't really start there. She starts with, we don't like the Valerians because they used to sell weapons to the Cardassians. And I'm like, okay, well, that's going to be a hard stance to take in the long term. But if you're like, well, no, I want to make sure that they're not doing it now. Okay, well, that's fine. And I feel like what you actually need to do is get laws passed, like, through your thing that's like, we're allowed to search in certain conditions where it's like there is a known history of this or that or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, like, really customs usually has pretty like free reign in the real world to search people.
Yeah, but I think there's a difference in this section where it's like the spaceship is passing through. It's not like they're offloading cargo here. They're just like, I'm going to stop here and get something repaired on our way to somewhere else. So I don't know that, like, U.S. Customs, for instance, is going to search your ship if you're stopping for 5 minutes and then going on to another country. If nothing is coming off your ship, then they probably don't care. What I really want to do now is go back and look at who was on the bridge when that guy shows up and presumably infects people. Why he can infect other people, but then they don't then go and infect more people still, I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, there must have been a whole like decontamination process through the station that we didn't see.
Oh, okay, hold on here. So Bajor junior officer worked in ops when alien spheres took over the crew. And he sides with Major Kira and gets a little device from Dr. Bashir. So the wiki seems to indicate that this guy was definitely up there when it happened. Also, he's played by stunt actor Jeff Pruitt, and the part was credited as ensign, which makes no sense because he's a Bajoran officer, not a Starfleet officer. Maybe they also have ensigns, I guess.
Yeah, maybe they have ensigns. We don't know.
I mean, we know some of their higher, like, major and colonel and stuff, but I guess they could also have ensigns.
Maybe he's in a different branch of the Bajoran military.
He's got the same color uniform as Kira.
Or maybe they're just like, or maybe the writers just didn't care.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
Yeah, I'm 99% sure that's actually what it was.
Okay, so let's see. There's O'Brien. We got Cisco. We got random Bajoran guy, but not that same one. This guy looks older. There's Dax. Dax is like, hey, boost the annular containment field. And O'Brien's like, yeah, duh. I'm doing that already.
It's like, come on, lady. I've been boosting annular containment fields since you were a baby.
But you got to remember, she has 300 years of experience. So
okay, I'm still not clear what the original Klingon mission was supposed to be. Was it supposed to be to bring back a weapon, or was it to look for colonies?
It seemed to be, like, they call it a biosurvey, and I assume the biosurvey is you're surveying the planet in order to find a good place to colonize.
Uh-huh. So then what are they going to bring back that will make the enemies of the Empire tremble?
Yeah, that I don't know.
Maybe those Klingons were just full of it?
Could be.
We will never know.
No. They're all dead now, so...
Yeah. Unless there's like a spin-off book of that Klingon mission.
I kind of doubt that. I wonder how many books there are out there that are just like Klingon ship stuff.
Yep.
No Federation, no anything else, and they're just a normal Klingon mission.
I guarantee you there's lots of fan fiction like that.
Well, yeah, probably. No, I'm not seeing anything in here that mentions anything about that. So, I guess we'll never know. The star date of this episode actually places it before The Forsaken, the previous episode.
Oh, okay. So, huh.
Oh, and it mentions that one shot where he has his comm badge back. Look at that.
Nice.
So apparently that whole section of the scene had to be reshot later on in production, and that they forgot to take the comm badge off again for the reshoot.
Okay, makes sense. Well, I was just thinking maybe like when they opened the airlock doors, like someone else's comm badge got sucked off and landed on Sisko's chest for a second.
Yeah, that's the explanation. There you go.
In fact, that's what happened.
Yep.
I'm declaring it.
You put that in there as an errata or a retcon or whatever.
Exactly. It's like, no, this is not a mistake.
When I was reading about the Cardassians today, I got to reading about a book, like a book trilogy, a Deep Space Nine book trilogy that I think I've read at some point, but it's been a very long time. But apparently they decided that they needed to correct an oversight from season 1 because they're like, well, why didn't the Cardassians just blow up Terok Nor when they left? Why leave it behind? And what have you? And so the book decides to fix that by showing that they did set the self-destruct, but then like future Garrick comes back in this book and like gives present day Garrick the codes to override the self-destruct before then erasing his memory so he doesn't remember that.
Oh, okay. That wasn't a question I ever had, but
nope.
Good to have it answered, I guess.
But yeah, speaking of retcons, that's a big
I mean, maybe they assumed they were going to come back and would just get the station back and that it would be too wrecked up for people to... But no, yeah, it was definitely a time-traveling Garrick went back in time and did that stuff.
Yep.
Why not?
I mean, obviously. Nothing else makes sense.
Anyway, you got any more stuff before we go into ratings?
Any more stuff? No, I don't guess I do. Have we had any more interesting comments on episodes or anything?
Nope, nobody has commented. Nobody has even watched the episode that got published today.
It has 2 views, it says, because I just brought it up.
Oh, nice. Oh, nice.
I'm gonna give it a like.
Did you view it?
I mean, I just brought it up to look at the episode rankings. So if
Sure.
Opening it and then immediately skipping to that and pausing it on there counts as a view, then yeah, maybe.
Okay, I only see 1 view, but anyway. Yeah, I imagine it does count as a view or a click. Okay. I forgot to welcome all our
She-Hulk hating
She-Hulk
guests?
haters and Garrick haters and Christian Bale lovers.
Sure.
And apparently people who watch the podcast that is one of the creators of The Expanse and one of the guys who stars in The Expanse. I noticed a lot of those were giving us lots of impressions. So welcome, everybody. No matter how dumb your opinions are.
That'll get them.
Yeah, now they're fans for life. Anyway, what would you rate this episode?
Okay, I like this episode a bit. I don't think it quite reaches captain heights, but what I'm going to say is I'm going to give it a lieutenant commander, and I'm going to put it near the top of my lieutenant commanders, probably like above Vortex.
Okay, but below Emissary?
Yeah.
Okay. Dramatis. This is another one of those titles that just doesn't stick in my brain.
Yeah, Latin titles can... that's not fair. Some of them do stick in my brain, so...
Yep. I'm gonna give it a full commander. Just something about the absurdity of it and just kept entertaining me. And I'm gonna put it also above Vortex. But I think I'll put it below Emissary.
So the exact same position, but just different rank.
True. There you go. I was surprisingly, as it went along, it just kept surprising me just how much I enjoyed it. Even though it's kind of weird seeing Odo do this thing, but it's just seeing him just be like, what's going on here? Every time it like zoomed in on his face and it was like, what? It made me laugh. So
yeah, I agree. It was entertaining throughout, and I almost went for full commander on this one also, but I was just like, is it better than Emissary? That was my point, because if it was better than Emissary, I would have made it commander, because Emissary is my top lieutenant commander. I was like,
right.
I think maybe I like Emissary a little bit better. So
I mean, it's good in a very different way from Emissary.
It's true.
But I think you have to give props to Emissary for being the pilot and being as solid as it is.
Yep.
Anyway, final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I'm eager to get to the next episode. I think that one's going to be fun.
Right. Except you're going on vacation, so that'll maybe
be a
little
it'll
while.
be a while before we do that.
Not from the point of view of the listener, though.
It'll be seamless to you.
Unless I...
Don't edit.
Yeah. Unless I go on just a month-long editing strike. The listeners will get the next episode next Wednesday, 6 a.m. Central Time. Nice. Why did I pick that time? I don't know. Did I research it and see what the best time to release episodes is? No. I was just like, it's Wednesday morning. The Undeclared Bajor fans, they get up, they want to download the newest episode right away and listen to it on their way to work.
Sure.
That's what I was thinking.
I don't remember how I decided that we're going to do the Sanderlanche, my other podcast, our releases on Mondays. I think I may have looked up what's a good day to put out a podcast, but there was no good answer for that. Everyone had a different opinion. And so I was just like, I think probably I finished editing an episode and was like, okay, it's going up.
Yeah.
And so that's how it ended up being on Mondays. And so I always put it at 5 a.m. on Mondays for that same reason, more or less, because people get up. Why I want the new episode to be there for them.
All the people listen to the podcast in their cars and on the subways and stuff.
Why I don't put it up at 1 a.m. instead of 5? I don't know. I could, but I just don't.
That would be more convenient to people in other countries, and screw them.
Oh man.
What time is commute time in Europe? That is probably a good point. You probably should release it a few hours earlier. Get those sweet UK viewers.
Part of it that I found is useful, though, is that, 5 is before I get up generally, but not so much before I get up that if something went wrong and the episode didn't upload like it was supposed to, which has happened a couple of times where Podbean's just nah, I don't feel like posting the episode when you told me to.
Sure.
Or maybe it just doesn't communicate that to Twitter and Facebook and every place that it's supposed to communicate it to, then... if I get up at 6, then it's only been an hour, and I'm already getting messages hey, where's the new episode? Uh-huh. As opposed to if it was 1 a.m., then people have been waiting 6 hours, and they're where is it? Where is it?
I mean, if people are that's good to have fans that would be trying to get your episode at 1 in the morning.
Well, I mean, international right. Fans, that's the thing. So, I mean, we've got, I don't know why I'm talking about a different podcast now, but we've got...
Go to the Sanderlanche podcast, link in the description.
I was just looking at some of our stats yesterday, and it was they've added more breakdowns. It used to be it tells you from various countries how many listeners you had, right? And for Australia, Canada, and the US, there was a breakdown by regions or states within that.
Uh-huh.
But those were the only 3 countries that were, special and got regional breakdowns. And then I was looking yesterday, and it was now there are also regional breakdowns for I gotta make sure, for Sweden and Germany.
Huh.
And so I'm oh, well, where are they listening to the podcast in Sweden and Germany? I want to know now. And so I bring up Germany, and it's over in Bayern, that section of the country, you've had 257 downloads. While
Bavaria, yeah.
In Brandenburg, we just had 1 download, so none from Schleswig-Holstein.
Oh, I mean, yeah, they suck there, so.
And it's the northern 2/3 of Sweden also have no downloads, but when you get to the southern parts of Sweden,
do people live in the north of Sweden?
Probably not. That's probably the issue. Stockholm, there's 71 downloads, and in nice. I can't pronounce most of these. Jönköping, there's 21 downloads.
It's a good thing they don't listen to this podcast, because how dare you insult Jönköping?
Well, that's not an insult. You, unless you just hate that I can't pronounce your thing right, which I'm sorry, I don't understand the letters as well as I do in other languages.
Nope, you have to know how to pronounce all foreign words equally well, or else you're a bad person.
My German's not terrible after 2 years of high school German.
Sure.
Baden-Württemberg.
Those Baden-Württembergians. They're great. We love them. Anyway, what were we talking about? A podcast or something? Oh, Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. That thing.
Okay. Final thoughts. Did you give any? I guess those were your final thoughts.
Yeah, I've final thoughted.
Yep. Okay, listeners, if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Be sure to check out the description where I occasionally put links to interesting things, like the Sanderlanche podcast. Woo. The podcast for people who read Brandon Sanderson books. I'm Fletcher, about to say goodbye as Data.
Goodbye.
May you all outsmart the hunters for one more day, and if not, die with honor. But either way, please remember to drop by anytime you're feeling homesick. Dun 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 dun.